Good morning, maybe for some people, good afternoon perhaps, but it's definitely a good evening for me. It's been a good day. We've been getting set on I don't know if I'd say Christmas Eve, but I don't know, it's the eve before battle, as it were. Everyone's getting lineups done. We're doing all sorts of stuff on the channel today, but podcasts and member section, everything else in between. But we've got a very special guest on the channel joining us to mark the special occasion. You probably know him. He's been around the Sorare community for a little while, but he's just started his first, or his dedicated Sorare like channels and stuff like that at Sorare Contender. The YouTube channel is linked down below. But we're here live tonight on a Thursday night pre-deadline with FPL General, Sorare Contender. Good to see you, Mark.
Yeah, good to be here, Quinny. It's following in your footsteps into the world of Sorare content creation. So dipping my toe in, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I find myself spending more and more time on Sorare over the last couple of weeks and couple of months. So I said, why not? Why not share what I'm up to when I'm on the laptop anyway? So stick on the mic, stick on the camera. I'm used to this kind of stuff anyway. So yeah, very, very excited. You mentioned Christmas Eve there. It certainly has those vibes. It's an exciting weekend of action ahead.
Yeah, because it's all the kind of unknown. But no, you're dead right, you know, because yourself, like, we'll be getting into some stuff tonight, no doubt, as well. But you play Sorare good. You play it hard, you know. You don't take any prisoners, if you can pardon the pun on that one. But yeah, so, like, it'll be really interesting to see the stuff you make. And I'm sure tonight, I say, we'll be getting into tons of stuff. Anyone join us in the live chat, get the fist bumps on arrival, hit the like button. And yeah, feel free to throw your 2 cents in or throw anything our way. Like I say, I'm kind of at the end of a long day, General, as I'm getting ready for, you know, kicking off the Celtic strategy tomorrow in Contenders, which is the first thing we were kind of chatting about before coming on. Now, I have a bit of a confession to make. I had a good bit of envy on, even before we were kind of chatting over the last few weeks about getting together and all the rest of it, about some of the purchases you'd made. Now, I made a purchase today, which makes one of yours look even better, right? But since we got everything opened up and we've got our hands on it, and we see that the captain bonus is now 50%, my need, want, and desire for a second Matt O'Reilly increased exponentially. And I went and picked one up today, and I was at the mercy of a single card on the market, you know, for 24 hours with a guy that just refused to counteroffer, refused to even reject me at times. And it just drove me insane, and I market bought it for 50% more than you paid, I think.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's not even that long ago I picked one up. It was it's one of those, Matt O'Reilly. It's one of those cards that, you know, when I was, you know, playing Sorare 6 months ago and I'm looking at player prices and all that kind of stuff, I'm thinking I'm never going to own a player like Matt O'Reilly. He's smashing it in the Scottish Premiership. His price is, you know, way out of my reach. And then, you know, with everything that's happened, you know, prices came down a bit. The fact that every card I already had was in Contenders, and then those prices started to drop more so than others as well. It made a few guys attainable. And what I learned more recently is, you know, Discord is your best friend in terms of, you know, direct contact with people selling on the market. And that's how I ended up getting my Matt O'Reilly. It was just contacting 1 or 2 guys on Discord. You know, you play them off each other in terms of, you know, those little white lies. You say, I've only got this much left, you know, I've only got this much in the balance, and you get the best deal you can. And to be fair, you end up chatting to some really good people who are really genuine. They're looking to get out of a card. They know you're looking to get in, and it's by far and away the best way to get a deal over the line. And obviously a bit of patience involved there with the to and fro. So I've always been very patient the way I play, you know, FPL. So I think that helps me on Sorare. So I was very happy to pick up a Matt O'Reilly. I keep a close eye on what you're doing, of course, as well, because we have similar interests and similar teams. And I noticed that you did pick up another Matt O'Reilly today. So I found that interesting because I think myself and yourself are probably different in that way, that I'm kind of I don't take too many risks in life or in fantasy games, and I try to diversify as much as I can. So I've always felt a bit uncomfortable about buying a second card of the same player. So I don't think I've got any doubles or trebles of players. But I've been following you, you know, last couple of weeks, and I know you've been kind of going down the approach of having 3, you know, very strong similar teams, you know, 3 Dysons and stuff like that. So I suppose my question to you is, you know, does that ever make you feel uncomfortable? You know, if you have a Dyson, if you have 3 Dysons and he picks up an injury, or you know, straight away you could be in trouble, or are you just going after a player who can, you know, on the flip side, scores very well 1 week and then he scores very well in 3 lineups? So I guess we're a wee bit different there.
I think, yeah, no, definitely. And I think like the way to go with these divisions and contenders, I was talking about this. We've got this spreadsheet available to us. I can get the link into the chat, but it updates every 30 minutes and it gives you like the head count of every division, how many prizes are available, and then subsequently like a win percentage here. It updates every 30 minutes, which is cool. And Contender is marginally the most difficult classic rare competition, like head count to prize payout. It's probably changed, probably for the worse, by this point, just to be real about it. And it's a division that's very like eclectic because you've got all those second division teams, you've got a lot of spice from South America dotted around, and then you've got the bargain basement of Europe, kind of propping up the maybe the top end of it, as it were, in a roundabout way. So for me, like coming into this, like yourself, a lot of card exposure there already, and I never would have bought 2 Dysons before, never mind thinking about getting all 3. But for me, going back to the main thing is I don't want to build a team of all-stars from that region. I think it will be too much work for me, if you know what I mean. I just want to, if I am playing that region, I'm just playing Celtic. And I picked up a Lennon Miller, and I've maybe got a guy or two. Like I've still got Eo Tanaka. I've still got a few guys knocking about for a wee bit of, je ne sais quoi, a wee bit of differential on the team. But ultimately, like with the region, I'm not going to kid myself on that I'm going to find the Bundesliga 2 guy and I'll find the Liga 2 guy and I'll do all that because I won't.
Yeah, that's a good point. Again, where we're different. My only focus is Contender. So when I go scouting for players on Sorare data and stuff, I am now looking at second division, Spanish teams and looking at all sorts of stuff that I never thought I would be about a month ago. But I find it's really enhanced my enjoyment of the game, and it's made me very excited for the upcoming change because I now have, because just before the changes were announced, every player I had was Scottish Premiership because that's what I know best. I'm in Scotland. I go to a lot of the games, and a lot of the advice I got over the last year or two on content was, stick to what you know. So that's what I did. I played a very kind of safe approach, but it's good now because I'm being forced out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to compete at the top of leaderboards if I've got only Scottish Premiership cards. Of course, Celtic cards can do well in a lot of weeks, but again, I'm diversifying now. So I've, sold a lot of my, weaker cap mode Scottish Premiership players and put those funds together for better players from other contender, leagues for that division. So yeah, it's been fun. Again, I played a lot of, I'm sure like yourself, a lot of, Football Manager, Championship Manager, my teenage days, and even as a 11, 12, 13-year-old, and I feel like Sorare recently has been giving me similar vibes, and it's kind of brought me back there. Going scouting in leagues and trying to pick up players I've never heard of, and then you're invested in those players. When you're keeping an eye on scores over the weekend, and I haven't done it yet, but we spoke about this before. But I almost got up at 5 a.m. 2 weeks ago to watch Sanfrecce, which again, a month ago I didn't even know who Sanfrecce were. But that is the beauty of Sorare. It changes how you engage with the beautiful game, and yeah, I have to say I've really enjoyed the last couple of weeks, and just can't wait to get started now in this new format.
Champ Manager defo shows your age, and it shows you're of the good vintage of football fan. I think everyone that knows Champ Man, there's a lot of good. I was going to say the big C word there. There's a lot of good folk around that age. So definitely. And someone was asking earlier what the YouTube channel was for yourself, mate. It's Sorare Contender. It's linked in the description down below, so they could jump over and drop a wee subscribe. Glenn Hoddle, that was. So yeah, that's Sorare Contender. It was quick off the mark getting that name locked in rapid.
You know what, it's I'm coming from the kind of FPL General brand that I've built up over the last few years, and I the sensible thing probably would have been just to call the channel Sorare General, just to kind of keep it on brand with the other stuff. But I like to keep it all separate. I don't have any Premier League cards. I keep everything separate because I see it as two different interests, and I just felt like I knew I'd be playing only in Contender, and I felt like that whole thing when people are on YouTube and they're looking up Sorare Contender information. If you are called Sorare Contender, it's probably going to help people find you. So, yeah, maybe it will cause a bit of confusion down the line, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, for now, it's Sorare Contender, so I'm probably stuck with it.
I know, I love it, man. It'll be a good one for you for sure. And yeah, so I do think like that's the main thing with that division, and I think there's definitely a lot of fruit to be bore with like getting individuals everywhere and playing a matchup like for, because it is only 3 teams ultimately. We can talk about classics maybe in season, maybe it's a separate thing, I suppose, but it is really just base 3 teams is all you can plan for as the classic, you know, team that you'll have, because in season team is going to be different every season in theory, you know, so like you can't really take that on a, you know, you can't really plan your foundations around that at all much way, unless you're planning on following a team relentlessly, like I've done with Celtic and a wee bit NYC. But so yeah, no, I totally get that. But and again, like my problem I've got with it, like you're saying, like I know all your focus is in Contender when it comes to Sorare, which is fine. And everyone, I think a lot of people really categorize their gallery like regions or whatever. But for the kind of journey my gallery's been on, and I don't know how other people in a similar position feel about this, but like for me, my gallery is more kind of sectioned off against the scarcities kind of define them quite strongly, like in terms of like what the super rares are doing, Celtic cards and whatever. But it is really like there is cards that I've bought to be functional in the game as like a perfect, like to be like you know, giving this a good old go of being, you know, what you get up to as a full-time endeavor in one way, shape, or form. Guys that are on a budget, catch them when they're injured. Can you flip them in the market? Can you use them on the leaderboard? Whatever. And so it's more about like with the Celtic guys, they've never really been those guys either. So if Daizen Maeda gets injured, like having one card is a problem, right? But if I've only got one Daizen Maeda and he gets injured and I need to replace him once, that's fine. But to have a gallery that operates like that, I know from just like, or this is just my opinion really, but when I've been running my gallery in the past and when I have had like individual cards everywhere, like I do think there's always been a benefit in getting multiples of cards, but the problem has been the risk and the jeopardy against it. Because me getting Daizen Maeda now for 40, £50 a rare is way more palatable than rewind 2 months ago. Never mind 6, never mind 12, never mind 18, you know? So I think that kind of, I would always be in that camp of why get 2, it's just mental, you know, spread your risk, maybe get some better positive variants more often than not as a result, etc. But I then think in turn, well, if I'm doing that, then it's an all in, all out approach. So like I think of like the whole squad and I see like how many copies of them that I should be accruing, how many I need to accrue. And then like, so Celtic's a kind of funny one. I'll just finish this wee tangent and give it back to you. So I feel you're there with me. But like I look at guys at Celtic like Welsh and Ralston and whatever, guys that are on like 5-year contracts that are homegrown for Europe and stuff like that, and think I could get 3 copies of that guy, no problem, and know that for the next 4 seasons, any time that injuries, whatever happen, roll around, then I've got 3 starting centre backs and right backs for Celtic guaranteed. They're not going anywhere. Yeah, they're no much use most of the time, but like they have something to offer. And then yeah, so it's like that's kind of, I suppose, the 2 balls I've bounced off of in terms of I'm not going to go hunting, and then if I'm doing it this way, there's a kind of a totalitarian kind of approach to it, I think.
Yeah, it's sensible. And again, you know, I've probably taken a similar approach with the Celtic cards. Again, it's just what I know best. And, you know, I had Alistair Johnson for a while. And while I did have him, you know, you pick up a Ralston for very cheap alongside it. Similar, you know, I've picked up a Cameron Carter-Vickers recently. We know what his injury record is like. So, you know, you pick up a Stephen Welsh, I think I only paid, you know, £5 or £6 for a rare Stephen Welsh. But you know, when Carter-Vickers misses out, at the moment anyway, it's going to be Welsh who comes in. Maybe not as good a scorer, but you know, you've got a piece there. And again, we go back. We'll get away from this in a second. But you know, I asked you about your 3 Dysons. And Dyson's probably a player, you know, a safer player to buy 3 of compared to a Rio Hatate or a Carter Vickers, who are very injury prone players. You know, I love owning Carter Vickers. I would love to have 3 of them, but how often am I actually going to be able to use all 3? So I feel like specific players you can maybe go harder on, you know, having 2 or 3 of them, whereas someone like a Maeda, who, you know, I know he was injured recently, but historically doesn't get too many, you know, when you compare him to a Rio Hatate. So yeah, it's an approach, and again, I'm not on a huge budget, and you know, whatever I put into the platform now, I'm probably going to leave it at that. So I'm probably going to, you know, I'll be in season. I'll have in-season teams for the rest of this European season, but then, you know, I'm very much going to just focus on Classic, I think, from August onwards.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I'm not going into the new season. I'm not thinking now I'll be buying new season cards on day one or whatever. We'll see how it's all kind of packaged and delivered, and maybe how successful we are in the final chapter of the European season, and maybe if you've got any kind of dregs and hangovers in the summer, especially in Contender now, if you are shopping in Argentina, in Mexico, and stuff like that. I suspect you'll have lineups kind of all year round. Actually, something I wanted to mention when you were chatting earlier, but I actually quite like the fact that you're not touching the Premier League like for your own way, because it's like they're two totally different games, and like for what you do for FPL, you probably don't want to poison your point of view and decision making on things, perhaps with another bias that maybe doesn't actually play much of a role in things. I don't know if that was any
Yeah,
thought of it.
again, it's interesting because FPL has been my game for 15, 20 years. I've been playing it since I was about 10, 11 years old, and I've over the years I've obviously messed around with a lot of other fantasy platforms, and the best example is playing the Sky fantasy game alongside the FPL. And I always I never enjoyed having two different teams within the same league. So, maybe I'd have, Harry Kane in my FPL team as my captain, but then I wouldn't have him in Sky, and then there'd be a conflict of interest. I'm happy if he does well for FPL. I'm going to get hurt if he does well in Sky, for example. So it kind of stems from that. And then the other side of it is, I've been a full-time FPL content creator for 5 or 6 years now. So obviously it pays the bills. It's become work. And when your hobby becomes work, you do lose a lot of the hobby side of things. And that's why I think I'm enjoying Sorare so much now, because Sorare I feel now is the hobby. And FPL, a lot of it is work, it's content, it's articles, it's podcast. And I still really enjoy it. But now I find Sorare is actually my downtime, I'm at my most relaxed when I'm watching one of your streams or someone else's streams. I'm on Sorare data. I'm doing a bit of scouting, So it's, again, that's the other reason why I don't bother with the Premier League side of Sorare. And that's not to say I'd never do that in the future, but for the moment, I like keeping it separate. And again, my experience with keeping an eye on Premier League cards and stuff when they launched, I don't find it the most exciting side of Sorare. That there's not that many massive scorers in the Premier League when it comes to Sorare, and I just think it's more fun going elsewhere and getting to know leagues and players that you don't know as much about. And again, when I'm watching a lot of Scottish games in person and in stadiums, it's much more enjoyable for me having Scottish Sorare cards, being in the stadium, watching them, and scouting players from the opposition and stuff like that. So yeah, I think for me, it just works for me avoiding the Premier League side of Sorare.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I just wanted to kind of throw that one out there. And Mikey was asking me about the Girona super rares. So I don't know how this kind of does tie in a little bit of a roundabout way. I kind of mentioned it somewhere. So the Girona thing was like, obviously we're chatting super rares and a few other bits and pieces, right? But I was getting these when the collection bonus came out, because I thought there's like a decent squad here that like will probably cast himself over Europe over a couple of seasons, and some of them will be good, a lot of them will be crap, and as long as most of them are halfway usable, then it'll probably do me pretty well. And really, for two reasons, like now, like I'm on the cusp of hitting the big 5 on it, and the way the classic mode's going, I'm quite happy to have that. But what helped me kind of lean into it a little bit more was the fact that I do fancy some of these worser guys. If that's even a word, sorry, it's terrible. But any of these crap guys, yeah, it is now, yeah. Like Keba, he's not really been playing. But some of these guys could go to the Segunda division, La Liga 2. And if they do, I can then play them with my Celtic super rares that are kind of weakened with all this separation that's went on. So I'm kind of hoping that this Girona collection can maybe feed my Celtic collection over a few transfer windows with a midfielder or a defender here or there. Ideally, for this to really work out great, I want to get both these goalkeepers, because they could definitely go down a division, no two ways about it. So, no rumours or anything like that. They're pure DNP merchants, and no one will give me them cheap. But that was just a little bit of, something I had before that I can quite easily keep, because I do have quite a lot of champion supers, and that's kind of like part of the segregation. Like when you're saying with FPL there, I kind of look at my super rares kind of like that in a little bit of a way. Like I need them to be kicking, I want them to be really pushing my gallery and, winning some big cards, trying to win some cash and whatever else. So, yeah, but I think Contender being such a difficult division, a difficult region on the head count. Let's have a wee peek at where the wee spreadsheet's at the moment. So we've got Contender, Classic, Rare. What divisions were we comparing earlier on? It was 1 and 2, wasn't it? 'Cause that's where the best stuff is. Yeah, they have fallen slightly, but not by much. 7.5% chance of on head count versus card payout. And then if we look at Challenger, Classic, Rare 1 and 2, it's 8.3 and 9%. And then for Champion, Rare, Classic 1 and 2, it's 7 and 8. So it's like a wee bit harder in D1, but a wee bit easier in D2. So the Champion one's kind of weird, but Contender definitely firmly has the worst combination of 1 and 2. Probably it's 7.4, 7.5 there. So I think with how many teams are in this, because the card payouts or the box payouts or whatever it is, it's all kind of totaled up here. It's actually pretty good numbers. It's just the amount of teams, isn't it? Because there is so many cards available this time of the year as well. Every one of them are playing, which means you can win any of them as well from the boxes, which, depending on your strategy. I know for yours, it's a good thing because you'll take or use anything, which you definitely need to be prepared for in any of these regions. Is you might be winning stuff that you don't intend on getting to know, but you might get to know, which is fine, and all the rest of it. But I think with just how difficult it is already, only C class, and they'll do different things to iterate it, I've got no doubt. But I think the collection bonus XP, we'll get level ups from the boxes, obviously, but there's very few differentials on the cards, as much as before. So I think as much as you might have, if you go and get the number one guy at, what's that guy, Lewis Holtby, is that his name? Is it Holstein or something? So if you go and get Lewis Holtby as a standalone card, maybe you get him up to a 2% if you get a wee stack on the go, just 5 cards. There will be, let's say there's 40 Lewis Holtbys. I'm going to imagine 20 of them. I don't know, actually, you can look at the leaderboards, you'll see these things for fact. Can we use a real example rather than me just making up gibberish?
It's funny you mentioned Lewis Holtby there. When I moved away from the Scottish Premiership cards a couple of weeks ago, the first bit of scouting I did on Sorare data on non-Scottish Premiership players, I discovered that Lewis Holtby and myself were born on the exact same day in the same year. So I thought, no more research required. He's going to be the first first in-season card I bring in who's not a Scottish Premiership player. So Lewis Holtby's actually going to be in probably my Division 1 in-season lineup this weekend. But that's the good point you made about the collection bonus. Most of the money I've spent over the last 2 or 3 weeks is picking up collection pieces to go with my key players. For example, I've got a Sho Sasaki, so I went out and bought 3 or 4 Sanfrecce players for that £1 or £2 each, with a view to next season then having my 2% bonus on as many of the key players as possible. I've got plenty of Celtic players, so we'll have the 2% bonus there. I think I picked up Salinger, goalkeeper from Austria, and again I went out and picked up 4 of his teammates for probably £5 or £6 in total. So I do think especially in Contenders, when it is going to be very competitive, that if you can have that 2%, which is easy to get to for very little budget or little cash, it's certainly worth doing, certainly in the long term. So I've done a lot of that. I've any decent card I have, when we get to August, it should have a 2% collection bonus.
Nice. So this is Q for this season. Don't know how many cards there's been issued or whatever, but this is in season, isn't it? So where's the markers? 250 and 500. So no one's at 5%, but we have 5 there at the 5%, which isn't that bad actually. But then at 250 and above, I suppose the 240 guys, we're basically at 14. So if you've got a guy on, let's say, the 2%, I think you're probably not really worried about it versus a 3% card. But imagine you didn't have any collection bonus. If you're going against 15 other guys that are going to have that kind of margin on you versus what your defender will do versus their defender, there's also some other things that can bounce off each other. I don't know, but with the kind of Celtic thing, that's a big enhancement on getting free Maedas, because you kind of need them if you're going to get all those bonuses topped up the way they are. But then the advantage becomes, I should probably not right away. It'll take me a wee while with this season to get some of the pieces off auction that will be really dirt cheap. But if I can have free Maedas at 14% and above, then whatever team that they're all in, or all of them are in, then it will come down to picking the best 5 when they smash. I know they don't smash all the time, but when they smash, having the right 5, and then you should be ahead of anyone that's got the right 5, because your right 5 should be. Then you get captain. It comes into it too, of course, right? There's always something, but
yeah.
So that's why I'm kind of just leaning into the multiple, because I just think there's a few easy take cares, there as well. I guess that kind of comes.
I think a lot of people just probably won't be arsed going out to pick up those little rubbish pieces. It's in many ways it's kind of annoying sometimes looking at pieces in your gallery that you're never going to use, but that are just there for collection pieces. I hope they add a filter at some point where you can just choose certain players in your gallery to hide. Maybe it's there and I don't know about it yet already, but I think it's a very simple, affordable thing that everybody can do. And we know when you look at leaderboards, it's fine margins very often. And the way I'm thinking about it as well, if I can have as many of my key players, even just at 2% versus a lot of people at 1%, let's say you have, a team of 5, and if they all have 2% instead of 1%, that's 5% over a lot of other people you're playing against. So I am trying to do that as much as possible. And again, it's a bit frustrating sometimes, spending money on collection pieces when you could be buying more exciting players. But I just think it's a sensible strategy. And in the long term, there will be game weeks where you beat a couple of managers on a leaderboard by very little points. It'll come down to your collection bonus. And, we know the difference from one tier to another in terms of rewards and stuff like that. So yeah, I just think it's sensible. And, you don't have to go all out and get 3, 4, 5%, but do what you can within what's affordable to you.
Yeah, a big time. Because I think it's going to be all the little edges that make the difference. And Rico Man has just highlighted. I thought this included the boxes. This effective rewarded. So I suppose maybe like that. Apparently this doesn't include the boxes. Because I suppose the boxes are RNG, and if you're only getting boxes, there's no guaranteed reward there. I suppose so. If that's what this signifies, then that's not quite as scary, because there's still going to be tons of boxes off the back of them of high quality, because that's D1 and D2. That's where the good boxes live. So let's see, 47 cards in classic D1 is what that would mean then, if that's the way we're figuring that.
I'm looking forward as well to picking up, level ups, boosts, or whatever, because I it's not something I've really gone out and spent coins on over the last year or two. So I think that's a nice little addition that we should be able to pick up level ups, quite often in the new format.
Oh no, yeah, that's just guaranteed card win. So that's quite cool. Guaranteed card win goes down to 47, but the boxes go down to 220. All the boxes are the same quality, of course, and this is where you start to get the chance of getting a wee cheeky star rare in there, maybe a wee crappy super if you're unlucky. That's terrible, actually, isn't it? Putting a tier 4 super rare above a tier 2 rare. That's a bit stinky, isn't it?
It's gonna be
that's a bit stinky. Come on.
We're gonna have to get
we're likely getting the rare, to be fair, but
we're gonna have to get used to opening lots and lots of boxes with absolutely damn all inside them, aren't we?
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm buzzing to get 14 boxes for 3 cards or 1 card, maybe, or I don't know. But yeah, the level ups will be good. But again, you need to win them to get them, and it's not going to happen all the time. Celtic might draw if we're looking at this exact team, or somebody might get sent off, or not everything goes to plan. It's football.
Not everything goes to plan if you have Joe Hart in goal, that's for sure.
Exactly. If you get Joe Hart in goal, nothing is going to go to plan. No matter, honestly, man, the amount of times this year he's just broke your heart is incredible. Like,
no pun intended there.
No pun intended. I did a video on the Satara here called something like Heartbreaking or something like that after one of his games. But yeah, pun certainly not intended that time.
Yeah, it's just on the goal, Celtic goalkeeper situation. I've obviously got, like yourself, I've got Celtic defenders, and whenever we do sign a new goalkeeper, I want to either be quick to get him at a decent price, or it's going to be a case of being patient, let it spike, and then pick them up, a couple of weeks afterwards. So, I kind of considered the approach of, I follow a lot of other managers who, have similar galleries to me, and the rumors have already started in terms of goalkeepers being linked, and you see other managers, snapping up 1 or 2 just in case. But I feel like if you do that, you could spend a whole summer and you could have 15 goalkeepers who were linked, and it still might not be the right one. So I'm just going to wait until it's actually confirmed who it is. And that's probably one of the only things I'll be willing to maybe top up the account for again is getting that Celtic goalkeeper whenever we know who it is, because it just fits in with the gallery.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely something you need a wee emergency fund stashed away for. If the guy's got a card already, because I think McBride has been going out and getting Kakiers and Vassens and guns and whatever else he can get his hands on at the moment. It won't be me. I've done that game before. Like when I first came onto Sorare, like I got an Ajeti West Ham card. Right, for example, that was like, oh, brilliant! The Jetties just signed for Celtic. I was so buzzing. I got a Jota Benfica card when that happened. Whatever. So I've played that game, and it can be expensive because again, you can link to guys and they don't come, or they do come. You spend a lot of money on them, and they're bum crack for this rubbish, So definitely. But again, one of the good things with Celtic, and I think Contender will probably have this when you can get tapped into it. But there's like good journalists. Like, see if like Mark Henry? Is that his name? I recognize the accounts when I see them, but there's like 2 accounts that are like journals, and if they say a guy is like flying to Glasgow, he's flying to Glasgow. Like, you can action on those kind of rumors when they come.
It's funny. I'm in my spare bedroom, which is at the back of the house, and I can see the planes landing at Glasgow Airport. So if I could get some kind of telescope that could see through the plane and see which goalkeepers are on it, then maybe I could even be the first purchaser.
Goalkeeper vision. Goalkeeper night vision. Love that.
Or maybe I just, I'll have a bit of downtime in the summer when FPL is in the off season. Maybe I just sit at Glasgow Airport every day and see who's coming through the arrivals gates and see if I can recognise any goalkeepers.
Isla here's got a good one. Robin Houser, is that? Guy's £4 and is an L15 of 56 with 100% played. Maybe have a wee peek at that guy. Rico Man picked up the Masson.
Add to the watch list.
Husler with the funny B. There's 2 S's. I think next season the level up percentage will be a lot lower. I think they'll add tickets, shirts. Yeah, I definitely think they'll I definitely think they'll jazz them up a bit. So the level ups get as many of them as you can. So I do think them being guaranteed surprised me when I first looked at the reveal of the boxes. Like everyone's guaranteed a level up if you get a box, basically. Like, I thought there might have been coins, there might have been, some other stuff involved. Like, who knows? But yeah, so that might taper off ever so slightly because again, if everyone rushes to level 20, then the XP means less, and then it kind of devalues some situations again. Which what's the point in doing that? There is none.
Yeah, it's definitely got to get the balance right, like you say. You don't want, especially for someone like me who's come August time probably only going to have 3 classic teams, and if there's a lot of my rivals, in a similar boat, you don't want us all having 5 level 19, level 20 cards. So I expect that to taper off as well.
Yeah, and when it comes to Celtic goalkeepers, I've went and got myself 2 Seagrists in case we loan them out to somebody, halfway handy, and he helps out with collection bonus or whatever. I've already got a Bane. I don't know if I want a second one. I probably will end up with 3 Banes right enough, but because he'll be at Celtic for the next 8 years. So
end up being the bane of your life.
Yeah, no, puns are flying tonight.
I know you've got the wrong person on if you want to avoid puns. It's fun again. The crazy thing.
Well, I went for a punt with this guy. Overall,
I noticed you did that, and I was thinking to myself, does he have insider info here on David Marshall? I nearly went in right behind you and picked up a Jojo as well, because I think I had a Marshall at the time. I actually picked up a Marshall again 2 or 3 days ago, because again, about 25 quid for a rare goalkeeper who hopefully will keep playing, and for me, hopefully remain in the Contenders. Contender division next season. But I was going to say, so yeah, again, the crazy things that Sorare does to you, I went down a rabbit hole of Benjamin Seagrass research a couple of weeks ago, into his personal life and all that. He's got I think his girlfriend's in Australia, isn't she? So
yeah,
I think fiance now actually. So there's always that scary part that he heads over there, but I think it's probably unlikely. He needs to bring her over to this part of the world, so we can start using them again in Sorare.
No, for sure. Well, there's a guy who does a Celtic podcast with me that lives in Australia, and he keeps his way up to speed with the Instagram feed of that chick and all the rest of it. Whenever Seagrass is over there, like Seagrass goes over there, by the way, at random times, you wouldn't believe. Like, why is the Celtic keeper in Australia? I don't know. Like,
well, he could probably go there for 12 months, to be fair. He's not really doing much here, is he?
Yeah, that's it. Well, fair play to that. But the Walcott is a bit of a punt because Marshall is out of season. He is like 38 or whatever. But see if I buy one more Marshall, then I'm completely covered. I've already got one. So if I have him as a second, and as long as Tani doesn't leave Japan before like the end of the Japanese season, I would have 3 contender get goalkeepers sitting chilling, whether I get a Celtic keeper or not. So it takes a wee bit of pressure off, which I think is a nice wee kind of safety net to have, because if the guy doesn't have a card, like, it is going to be brutal for about 3 months trying to get one, never mind 2, which some people will want. So I think contingency plans for these cards are important.
My goalkeeper setup is a bit of a mess. I think I'm planning to play 6 teams, for the rest of this season, and then that will drop to 3 teams come August time. But I think I've got 7 keepers at the moment. But yeah, 7 players that actually play. Because I got screwed over by Ross Laidlaw a couple of months ago. He was one of the most expensive purchases I made on Sorare at the time. Bought him for the cap modes. He was a pretty steady Eddie, always played and could hit decent scores. And then, Derek Adams came in at Ross County and brought in a keeper on loan, and it just was a disaster. You end up having a goalkeeper you paid probably about 170 quid for. Now he's worth about 20 quid. But it's one of those, you just leave him in the gallery and you hope when the loan keeper heads away in the summer, Laidlaw comes back in next season, or else goes somewhere else, maybe in the Scottish Premiership, because he is a decent goalkeeper. So, but that was a stinger, that one. But again, that's the life of a Sorare manager.
Oh, for sure. I think that the fact of Laidlaw, this is a really important part about Sorare cards in general. And I think especially the way price volatility is went, I think people really do feel this a bit more. But you really do need to know that the guy's a good player, because even though Laidlaw has played at a bad team, like anyone that watches Scottish football, Sorare related or not, gives the guy some cred as being a handy keeper, and it only takes one other team in the SPFL to need a goalkeeper. And just with the budget restraints and real life scenarios that all these clubs all live in together, somebody like him is a great option for any bottom half club, really, who is looking to get a handy keeper. So whereas there's other keepers that same situation happens and, they're gone. What was the Australian guy or whatever his name was at Dundee United, Berigiti or whatever, So he comes in, you think, oh, cool, he's got a bit of pedigree, a bit of something about him, and then dropped and gone and never heard from again,
Yeah. I think it was the unlucky one about Laidlaw, for those of us who have a card, is the guy they brought in, Wickens, has been very, very good. I was at the Celtic Ross County game when he made his debut, and straight away I thought this guy. I said to the guy sitting beside me, if we flip those goalkeepers, flip Wickens and Joe Hart, we'll probably keep more clean sheets. Just a very very highly rated and a very good goalkeeper. I think he made 19 saves against Rangers, Wickens. Some kind of new record. So again, I think Derek Adams got sacked. Don Cowie took over. So then I was kind of hopeful, manager change, maybe Laidlaw comes back in. And I think if it was anyone else other than Wickens, maybe he would have. But the guy's just been really, really good. So I'm just counting down the days until his loan deal is over.
Aye. And I say, with relegation, it's pretty set for Livingston. Well, Ross County, are they in jeopardy of getting in that playoff position at all, or whatever?
Yeah, they're in danger. They're in danger with a few others. I mean, I've got Dimitar Mitov, who's a good goalkeeper at St. Johnstone as well. So I'm dicing with death with a few of the goalkeepers I have. So I'm hoping things play out okay for me in relegation playoffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, fingers crossed for sure. And well, maybe some Dundee United cards will be getting their red X's off, hopefully, for next year. I've still got my Tony Watt Superwear on ice and training every week, ready to go for whenever they come back, which would be good crack as well. But
it was good to see. It's good to see Tony back on the channel this week.
It was great to have him on. He couldn't make it this morning, unfortunately, because their training schedule was just like he was training sort of thing all week. It wasn't any time we could all line up, but I know he's raring to go, and I think he'll be back maybe next week as well. But yeah, Dundee United, maybe we'll get a wee bit of them back on. Yeah, I think contender-wise, like I'm kind of like, as I say, mainly for me, like again, when I'm looking at this division and the competition in it, like yeah. I'm quite buzzing about my wee Celtic rig out. I don't mind, like it's one of these things as well. Like one of the things I do love about Sorare is like the football manager aspect of it, and like I've been kind of saying on this channel for a long time, like I definitely want to get a wee bit better tuned into Brazil mainly. Maybe I fancied a wee bit more than Argentina necessarily, but I had a Dominic Fitz in my gallery recently, and he did very, very well for like a month or something before moving him on. So I don't mind bringing these guys in to kind of flavour the strategy and all the rest of it. But I do think like with Classic, like it's something that is going to be really strong. Like you'll need a few guys. Doesn't always need to be like your main team necessarily, but like I think you'll be well served, especially the price you can get a lot of tertiary guys for now. I think you will be well served in having like a foundation kind of base of a club. Like you see some of these goalkeepers as well are defensive stacks. If you can just have solid rigidity, 14% players for 3 of them, and they're just like they play every week and they're in La Liga 2. They keep clean sheets 60% of the time and whatever. Then in the classic mode, like I say, just because I like seeing the head count and stuff like that, we've looked at it a few times. It's just it's an edge I think everyone will want. It's pretty much the only thing I can think of for Contenders.
Yeah, the way I'm approaching it as well, like I said, I've got enough cards now to play, 3 in season and 3 classics for the rest of this season. And then
Nice.
the plan is not to go after, not to buy any new in-season cards, just try and win them to begin with. If I won 2 or 3, then maybe, I would buy one just to finish out the team and start using it. But I feel like the way things are set up for me now, I can put out 6 decent teams, but I'm quite excited about August as well, because the plan then would be July, August time, streamline the gallery a wee bit and maybe, lose a percentage of the players, because I'm no longer going to need 6 teams. I'm going to be focusing on 3 classic teams. So, sell a few, put those funds together, and then buy some, really good cards for the classic. So, I've got a pretty set plan in place, and I think that's important in Sorare, and it's going to help me to stay disciplined in terms of depositing money and stuff. Because I know it's not a gambling platform, but I get, I used to gamble a lot in my younger days, and I do get similar vibes in terms of there's just always another player that you want, or you look at the auction, you think, well, good value there. I'll just, plug in the card details, pick up another card. But I want to be careful with that kind of stuff. So that's why, again, playing classic, it's much easier to be disciplined if that's your strategy.
Of course, yeah. Nice bubbles to kind of chase and whatever. My ears kind of picked up there when you were mentioning like playing 3 in season and 3 classics. Also a great position to be in, like right from the kickoff for this weekend, which is brilliant. And like, yeah, it's how much importance do you put on? I know you're sticking to one region. If you were ever to change it, like the 3 lineups, like what's your goal with them? Like for me, it's you've got to be looking to get them all into Division 1, isn't it? Or how are you building them?
Yeah, I've been like everyone else this week. You go and start building a few teams, and then you think, this is not as straightforward as I thought it was going to be. And it's easier for me because I'm just in Contender. And there's obviously still the cap modes for a wee while, and there's All-Star. But for me, I think it's easy because every card I have is Contender. I want to win Contender cards, so I'll just stick to where I am. And I've never been great at hitting the middle threshold anyway in the new kind of version of the caps, and I just feel like I feel like aiming for 15 quid at the lower one, it doesn't really excite me that much. I'd rather just stick it into the divisions and try and move up. So yeah, it's the plan is just prioritize. I'm lucky enough, I've got I'm in Division 1 in both of in season and classic, so that's a good starting point. So the plan is, of course, try and keep both teams in Division 1, so they'll be 2 of my strongest lineups. The way I've done it is built in season Division 1 and Division 2 first of all, and then I've just forgot about the in season Division 4, and then went and built my classic Division 1 and Division 2. Try and prioritize those that are in the highest divisions, and then whatever's left over, build 2 teams then with the weaker pieces that are in Division 4. So initially, I'm not in a huge rush to get those teams out of Division 4. I want to really make sure I stay in Division 1 of both, and then get the Division 2 team up there as well. And maybe then I would start to, maybe put more focus on the Division 4 teams. But again, that's just weekend 1. We'll see how it goes, and I could have a totally different plan this time next week, as is the case with most people. So, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother with All-Star or cap mode or anything like that. I just think the way my gallery's set up, it makes sense for me just to stick with the divisions.
Yeah, I think All-Star is way easier to bin off if you don't want to go across region anymore, like, because the cash is chunky, but it's only on the podium. So like, there's not even that, if you get the top 100, then at least there's a couple of quid for your trouble on top of it, So Yeah, definitely agree with that. And in terms of the threshold, yeah, unless you've got, like I'm a wee bit, I'm not too sure if I'll get threshold this weekend because I've got Marshall and goals away to Rangers. So like he's probably conceding 3. We hope he saves a penalty and makes a last man tackle or whatever. But it's probably, so again, middle threshold's probably not likely for that. Team's probably bottom. But yeah, no, man, I totally get it because again, when you look at the cash prize place pots, see for some of the divisions, I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's not exciting. Like some of the money, like the tail, like the long tail, which is fine, and you kind of get why it's there. And I'm sure when you win it, you'll be rubbing your hands together. But just looking at it as a base leaderboard, like that bottom threshold at rare, and some of the back end of the prize pools at the cash, it's not quite as like, oh, cool, better get that team in.
Yeah. Am I right in saying you can still win cards in the cap modes for now, can you?
Yeah, 240 still cards.
Yeah, so I think it's certainly not a straightforward decision. For example, building a Division 4 lineup that I'm not in a mad rush to get promoted. I probably should be given, cap 240 more thought on that. But yeah, I've just kind of the last 3 or 4 weeks I've kind of been building towards just having 3 teams in each and just focus on that. And again, it'll probably end up shaking out fairly similarly anyway when you compare a capped team and a Division 4 with players that are not my smashers. So I'm not expecting much from them regardless.
I wonder what that Division 4 looks like. So we're only looking at Divisions 1 and 2, but what does D4 look like? 10% on guaranteed cards, that is. And also there's boxes and stuff going around. So that's actually not too bad, is it? And again, that's going to be everyone's third team, So how good will they be?
Does that spreadsheet show you the number of entrants so far?
Yeah, that's this year, SO5 lineups.
Yeah. So what's it looking like in in-season rare Division 1?
In-season rare Division 1 contender.
Yeah.
There is 301 lineups.
Yeah.
60 spots.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where that number ends up on Friday.
I don't think it'll change too much from now. There will be a wee bit more, but I think if you're making your D1 team, you've made it by now,
Yeah, true.
Maybe D4s and stuff might bulge out a bit with training lineups and crap, especially at limited, by the way. I've seen this. Someone brought it to our attention on end products, but was it Pranksy or one of the whales anyway? I think it was Pranksy. One of the whales has been out buying limited goalkeepers so that you're going to play all their excess super rares and limited. Just sounds hilarious.
That's just with the view that just gets you more XP. Is that the reason behind that?
It's kind of like training with a chance of winning something. If your guy does bang, like that's what I think of it as. It's quite funny, very economic.
If I had more goalkeepers, I probably should do that with unlimited as well.
Yeah, I did. It was a thought that crossed my mind as well. But yeah, so I think the D1s might not change too much. The D4s might bulge out a wee bit. But no, it's interesting as well because a lot of people are trying to, because of the way Sorare have allocated all the divisions for this first game week, like in rare, D3 is like a no-whale zone. Like I can't play, I've not got an entry in Contender D3. I don't suppose you will either, so some people are kind of turning their gallery upside down to get some of the wins on the way up and get a wee bit of joy while it's going.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, I'm prioritizing Division 1 and Division 2, but I'm sure there'll be people out there that will just put a very strong lineup into Division 4 and try and move up as quickly as possible and obviously win some stuff along the way. So that's the beauty, I think, of the design of the divisions, that there's a few different ways you can approach it.
If you do want to see the individual count on any division, when you click on your team, it does tell you here, that's how much is in the actual division, but there's no easy way of like scanning them and having a look, sadly, which is why somebody's put this spreadsheet together, but when you click into any of them, you can see precisely the amount in that division itself. So you can have a wee click about with that on the platform if you don't get the spreadsheet anywhere online.
Just looking at your teams there, it'll be all eyes on training pictures tomorrow. It's a tricky Celtic lineup to predict this week.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see pictures from McGregor because my team 4, I fancy it. See, before seeing any training pictures, I put Hatate in front of McGregor in terms of likelihood of starting. He played in that bounce game in the international break. He was pictured in training beforehand. Everything's pointing to him that they would definitely play. And I think if McGregor's not ready to start, I could see Hatate starting next to O'Reilly and Iwata, no problem, But if McGregor's in training, then I think both. I don't know. Then he gets a bit. I don't know who starts and who comes off, or because Iwata plays, O'Reilly plays for me. Defo.
Yeah, I'm on the same page there. It's the McGregor status will impact the likelihood of Hatate starting. I've got both cards as well. I'm not really sure what to do with them. I think at the moment, I've got Hatate in a training lineup, and I've got McGregor, in a low priority lineup, which I might just leave it at that if there's no specific information or signs on Friday. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having Hatate back. I picked him up, quite early in his injury, and I've just sat on him patiently all this time, and looking forward to having him back because we know we can score well. I think, have you got a forward card there? I tried to pick up a
Yeah, I've got two
a
mids.
Hatate forward card, but again, it went against my whole thing of having more than one of the same player. I have a Hatate midfielder, and I talked myself out of a Hatate forward card.
A defender's that a good one to have is very peaky, but I don't. Hatate, I've always had multiple Hatates because of that forward card. It's just always been the way it's been. Even the super rares and whatever. But yeah, and again, even in this situation, if you do have like 3 Hatates and 2 McGregors, you still need someone else if they're missing, kind of thing. If you know what I mean. So you do need, and I'm not going to be stacking everyone else to that level. So as I say, having a wee cheeky Lennon Miller in the background, a wee cheeky Ao Tanaka. I don't mind a wee bit of that, when these guys are playing Quan, they're playing each other. What do you make about that one? What's your opinion? Motherwell versus St Mirren. Who do you think wins that? Quan or Miller? Who scores better?
I'd be inclined Motherwell at home, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
St Mirren they've dropped off big time since the start of the season. Very inconsistent, but we know Motherwell have been at times as well. But yeah, I'd lean towards Motherwell for that one. So probably Miller over Quan. I've had a Blair Spittle card for ages, and I think he's my best performing card on the platform in terms of reward. So I'll be using Blair Spittle this weekend at home to St Mirren. I've got a Lennon Miller as well. I mean, such a good young player. Probably the young player in the Scottish Premiership that I'm most excited about. And again, I have him in my gallery. I'm probably not going to use him that often. Certainly not in high priority lineups, but it's one of those, again, just jumping on a player when they're young and going on the journey of their career with them and see where it goes. And ideally for people like myself who've got a lot of Celtic cards, if he's wearing green and white hoops at some point in a couple of years' time, it'll be even better.
Yeah, and again, having a wee bit of that, organic transfer, and it can always be good when it happens. Like Stish won Nicholas Kuhn as a Austria card, and then he's got Super Rare O'Reilly, and then before he knows it, he's got a wee forward companion just transferring across. Rico Man's asking, I guess we it's a bit to both of us, but just general plans for the summer with the European ones going off. Like I've got a full MLS collection, and if Sean Johnson and Matt Threes are both playing, then I've got 2 keepers. I kind of want a goalkeeper number 3, which I would like to be a Zach Steffen, just because he's a former Man City player. No other reason. He's kind of been on my wee kind of hit list for a while, even though he's mainly rubbish. And they will just play classic, and whatever happens to them, happens to them. I don't really, that's kind of my off-season. I don't plan on doing off-season contender.
Yeah, my off-season will be pretty quiet as well. I work quite hard FPL wise during the season, and I do like to switch off. I think it's healthy and important to take a break. So if I'm taking a break from all things FPL, my engagement with Sorare will drop off a bit as well. In certainly in June. So I'll probably come back to it in July, August time. But I think my off season, the only cards that I have are Sanfrecce guys and FC Seoul. So I've got 5 players. I can put a classic team out between those 2. So I'll obviously enter those as long as none of them get injured. If one of them did get injured, I'd probably just pick up another one at a sensible price, just to have one team ticking over during the summer period. But for me, the off season, the European off season, will be about just kind of fine tuning the gallery. Probably a bit of downsizing, but I'll wait until closer to the start of the season and hope the prices peak a little bit more. But then if there's any bargains along the way during the off season, I'll start picking them up for next season as well. So very much just probably one lineup during the summer and doing a bit of trading here and there, and then things will pick up big time then probably towards the end of July and into the start of August. So yeah, some downtime before a hectic season of Sorare next season.
Yeah. Rico Man was kind of expanding on, I think I misinterpreted them, but it was meaning more with like, you specifically, you've got 3 classic and 3 in season. You kind of touched on it a moment ago, but you're effectively going to have 6 teams worth of players. So how will you, do you have a skeleton plan? Like, do you keep 3 keepers? Do you keep 4 keepers? Defense, does
Yeah,
that
so
stay bulky maybe? I don't know.
It's again the approach I've been taking. Any card I buy now or I have done the last couple of weeks, in my mind, it's a classic card very soon. So everything in my mind is going to be a classic card very, very soon. So keeping that in mind, it's again touched on a wee bit earlier. It's when everything is classic, I will have too many cards. So it'll be just streamlining, and it's a matter of, maybe I sell 10 to 15 cards, and then maybe I buy 3 or 4, really good cards to improve the classic lineups then for next season. Or the other side of it is maybe whatever cash I've put in now, if I sell 10 or 15 cards, maybe I just withdraw, and maybe, I don't think I've withdrawn on the platform so far, but it's always an option. If I feel like I'm strong enough the way things are with 3 teams, then I'll just withdraw it and, use it for something, home improvements or something very boring like that. But yeah, it's try and do as well as I can with 6 teams, and then just streamline things a wee bit, and either buy better cards or just take some money out of the platform.
Nice. Jack G is going against you. He's got a full Rika stack in season Contender against bottom of the league. Boy, should smash. And Rika have been one of the stories of the year.
We're against bottom of the league this week too, so we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah, that's true enough. On a dodgy pitch. And the thing about Livingston, but is I was saying this to somebody, I can't remember if it was on camera, probably not, but their manager is maybe the Celtic podcast, but their manager is a massive Rangers fan, and he doesn't really do a good job of hiding it. And Livingston's season is completely written off. Now, the last time we played them in the league, their season wasn't as dead as it was now. It was pretty dead then, but they did hold hope on like, can we keep the game tight and maybe nick something? And then the second time we played them, people were saying, they didn't actually play the football terrorism. They actually played a game of football, and we spanked them because it was a cup game and they had to come out and try and win it. But this game is going to be, again, a very different match to the last 2, I think, because Livingston are dead. They've got nothing to play for in this game whatsoever. Like, really, they're going nowhere fast, except for how fired up Martindale gets them for putting a spoke in the wheel of the title bus, So it'll be interesting to see what type of Livy does show up in that regard. Are they in cup final mode doing one for the manager, or are they just like, don't do 5, lads?
Yeah, and the pitch is a big factor for me when I'm building my lineups this week. It scares the life out of me, Celtic boys playing on a plastic pitch, especially the Hitatis and the McGregors who've had injury issues. And Carter Vickers is the big one for me. When I was putting my Division 1 in-season team together, I had a choice. I could go Greg Taylor or Carter Vickers. If it was a home game, I'd be putting in Carter Vickers, but because it's on a plastic pitch and because he's had issues recently, I'm going to play Greg Taylor in my top team, because in my mind, Taylor is 100% to play and to probably play 80 or 90 minutes, whereas Carter Vickers to me is maybe only 70 or 80%. And I just, especially for the first weekend of the new format, I don't want any very, frustrating moments, especially in my top team in Division 1 and in season. So I think Taylor's going to be in my Division 1 team, and Carter Vickers probably goes into Division 2.
Nice. I've put Carter Vickers in my bottom one. I've went double fullback in my top division. I went with Taylor and Johnson just because I thought a wee bit of spice, But yeah, I think you need those options to pick the player for the game.
Yeah. Every week's different. Like I said, if it was a home game, it would be flipped. And Carter Vickers would probably be my captain, most likely, in the top lineup. I sold an Alistair Johnson when he got the nasty head knock, and there was talk of a fractured face or some kind of dangerous fracture. I think whatever I paid for Alistair Johnston, I sold him quite quickly for the same price, and then I just picked up a Ralston and used him for a wee while. But now that Johnston's form has improved, I kind of wish I held on to him, and I keep a wee watch list of players that I want to go and buy over the next few weeks or maybe into the summer. And I'm looking to get a Johnston back, hopefully when his price takes a wee dip towards the end of the season.
That's a good one. I'm a big fan of Taylor as well. Someone asked if Taylor will be the starting left back for next year. It's very hard to see it personally because at Champions League level, really at the sticky points of the season. Like, he's great. I love him. I'm probably his biggest fan. He's won me more cards than he's probably won anyone else, but he's just not got that. Yeah, maybe he will. Maybe he will develop, right? But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. It doesn't look like it has happened. And Celtic kind of need to go and buy a left back. So I don't hold as much faith that Taylor will be anywhere near as nailed on as he's been over the last 2 years. We did fear Bernabe would take minutes for him from a cards perspective, but for the club, obviously, we're quite excited by Bernabe. And I think like this season, like the club are on goalkeeper left back this summer. It has to be the first two things that we buy. We can't buy another winger. And I was going to say unless it's Bernardo, but I didn't even want them to sign Bernardo. But there's really no space for another midfielder unless we're selling people,
Yeah, on the same page completely. I'm a happy holder of a Greg Taylor card, and I'm hoping he's going to be very useful for me for the rest of this season. He's an in-season card, but he's one that I'm actually open to selling during the off season because I can't be 100% sure he's going to be as good as Sorare card this time next season. There's no competition at the moment, so they're going to sign somebody to compete with him. So even if it's just a bit more rotation at times around bigger games, that it could happen. And again, I don't have a Liam Scales either, and I had no interest because, first of all, his price was astronomical, and we know the player he was before he turned into Maldini at the start of this season, and he's obviously tailed off a bit since. But again, people who are looking at Sorare data and stuff and maybe don't know as much about the league, Scales could be still first choice next season, but I can't say that for sure. Whether when you've got on the flip side, a Carter Vickers who's absolutely in the team regardless of what happens. I was maybe slightly tempted to pick up a Scales recently when the price plummeted quite a bit and you throw in the injury and stuff like that. But if I've got any concerns over starting position next season, and if they're anyway expensive, I just kind of swerve them.
Yeah. I think that's, you do get a lot more certainty with Vickers, because he is like, I was saying when he got his new contract and just with everything that's been happening with him, it seems to be pretty much the case. But like, he's not going to get a better team than Celtic in his career. He's not going to play. He's not going to be a starting centre back in the Premier League. He's not going to go to a top team in Europe, top four of any of the major leagues or anything. So when he signed that new contract, I'm glad. I want players to be bought, like appreciate the club for what it is and go, right, I'm here. Part of that is he's damaged goods. And that's part of the reason he won't ever kick on, because he seems to have this recurring problem that won't go away from him. So he's just signed a 5-year contract. He's the number one defender. When he plays, he is a fucking man mountain. So you've got ultimate security with him. Whereas Scales does give you a wee bit more SO5 punching power, but maybe even the Rocky, gets him out of the team, because that's kind of what some Celtic fans think. I listen to a lot of fan media, and a lot of them are still baffled that Scales is in the team ahead of Narocki and Welsh, and it baffles me. I think he's very, very good, and he will be a very hard guy to get out the team, but it doesn't stop them trying. And if they spend enough money, someone will put him out the team. Like it's just we spent $6 million on Julian. Need to remind people, or educate any Sorare managers, for example.
I'm like you as well. I'm a big fan of Taylor and Scales, and I like the balance that Scales brings with the left foot at centre back. But again, I picked up a Narocki for 10 quid, picked up a Scales for 5 quid, and I'm just hoping longer term that kind of plays into my favour. Even if it's not at Celtic, if it doesn't work out for Narocki at Celtic, maybe he goes somewhere else within Contender and he might be useful for me. But I'm certainly a lot more content paying a tenner for a young Narocki than a 300-400 quid for a Scales who I've got slight concerns over.
Yeah, well, Scales is now cheaper than O'Reilly. You'll be glad to hear. So he's coming into range.
I thought I'd see the day.
He's coming into range. I think that last game, when you look at his L5, that DNP, it just really puts the fear into the market of the music is stopped. Kind of vibe. So yeah, I've got a Scales. I've had Scales for ages, obviously, but he's in that Aberdeen kit. This is the only Celtic Scales, can you believe? So I definitely have always been after one of these in-season ones. But like you say, when these first came out, the price is eye-watering, and I was always waiting for this to go out of season. I might buy one in season if it can go a wee bit cheaper, and maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe I'll squeeze myself into getting one into the club sooner rather than later. But I really do hope. I think Brendan's a big fan as well. I think Brendan really likes them, and I think if you can get a new keeper and a new left back, how much of the defence do you really want to change? If Brendan can be happy with AJ, CCV, and then Scales, and then you've got Welsh and the Rocky, I think, the manager probably be happy with that defence, and then you've got everything else that's going on that he needs to deal with, and maybe get another transfer in or out, depending on what happens with Bernardo's and Ida's and the likes.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, a good tip for Sorare is, you'll look at fan opinion when you're doing your research, which, can be a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. But if you look at any Celtic social media, especially after a defeat, it's, we need a new left back. Scales is not good enough. But it's very, very clear that Brendan Rodgers likes both players a lot. And that's the most important thing. He's playing them week in, week out. So they're, at the moment, pretty reliable in terms of getting you good scores on Sorare. So yeah, it's, take what's actually happening in front of your eyes on the pitch rather than what the armchair guys are saying.
Yeah, for sure. We've got Critical Chris asking us, if you were new, your first team, would you be putting into 240 or Contender? I personally would go for 240, beat the game rather than the leaderboard if you're brand new, personally.
Yeah,
if it's
again,
open, it's only open to certain people, so double check you can play it.
Yeah, a friend of mine joined the platform not that long ago, and he said, "Where do I start?" I said, "Yeah, go into Cap 240. Try beat the game and feel it out. Don't spend too much to begin with. Feel it out in there, and then decide where you want to go from there."
Yeah, solid. That's what I'd be saying. Agent Cooper's got Tio Hernandez coming to Celtic Park. I wish. So there's been a few comments on this. It's kind of a hard thing to talk about because I've not opened it up yet. But Sorare have retired. If you have, I know you're saying here you only have 4 cards, but they're saying if you've played a team of all pro cards, I think was the word, maybe it was 5, then you can't access all the commons and stuff like that now. It's purely for onboarding. It's purely like kindergarten Sorare now, once you're past that level, you don't get to touch it or see it anymore or whatever. So Jack Pro, I'm going to assume that's what's happened to yourself, buddy. You've played a team maybe once, or your 4 cards qualify you to be in that situation, mate. So, yeah, that's what that is. It's in the announcement somewhere. You should check your in-app notifications. It will be there if you need that.
Yeah, that's the one. They kind of went back on what they said, I think, initially, wasn't it? They said, contrary to what we said beforehand, you actually can't do that anymore if you've played at that level. But I suppose they just want people to buy cards, don't they? So that's probably the only way around that. Again, the good thing is this time of season and towards the end, they're a lot more affordable than they were. So if you've got 4 cards already, you're not too far away from actually having a team. So yeah, I can understand a lot of people are frustrated by that at that level.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think I'm just kind of keeping up with the chat and everything. I'm excited to get going. I'm quite glad Celtic have got a decent fixture to open up with, but this region, there's going to be so many teams with good fixtures. I don't even know how to think about, what's a winning score? What score do I need? What score am I happy with? Who do I need to fail? Because that's a big part of Sorare as well. Is everyone knows to watch for Celtic losing their clean sheet. That's what people do all around the world now that play Sorare. They just watch for Joe Hart conceding that goal. But
they don't even need to look for that anymore. They just know it's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. It's just happened that often.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. I know already. I know I'm going to be looking at my leaderboards on Sunday and Monday, and I'm going to be looking at the top scoring cards that have beaten me, and I'm going to be scouting in leagues that I haven't been scouting in yet. Argentina, for example, I haven't really looked there, but there's teams in there that I'll probably need to start thinking a lot more about. Funny story as well. You mentioned Brazil earlier when they when they announced all the changes that the champion, challenger, contender. I was chatting to a friend of mine, and he plays Sorare as well. He was on to me about Brazil. He said, you need to start looking at Brazil. They play a lot of games, a lot of good value. So I spent about 2 hours doing a bit of research on Brazil, and then I realized, you know what, they're not even in Contender. So 2 hours down the drain.
That's a nightmare.
But you never know. I might go there in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely for me, it's the South American League I would have the most interest in, because it's Boca and River's cool, and there is some other clubs in Argentina that are pretty historic and pretty big as well. Not going to discredit any of them, don't get me wrong. But Brazil, for me, does feel like there's 8 teams there that have had something going for them, have got something going for them. Whatever, that a cool rookie came out or a wee wonder kid did emerge from. could be fun to know about before everyone else, and have some cards for, and that kind of thing. So yeah, Brazil.
Yeah, again, sorry to cut across you again. When I joined the platform around World Cup time, Winter World Cup, a lot of people, players like Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez seem to be absolute heroes and favorites among Sorare managers. And again, that taps into what you're talking about. If you can be in Brazil and you can know about these guys beforehand, it's a very exciting journey to go on then, within their careers.
Yeah, Argentina is covered in them at the moment, and River is a bit of a factory. So with them just having new cards given out, like, that's a pretty good in-season, or pardon me, a good classic reward to maybe find in our reward box these days, is some of these River Plate rookies and a few of the other ones. Again, one of the things that's maybe a wee bit undersold about this contender region is some of because it is like everything else is chucked into it at the bottom: Ecuador, Colombia, Switzerland, Russia. Everything's in here, you know what I mean? And there's all sorts of China as well, by the way. Chinese cards go in here. So there's all sorts of wacky, kind of random one-off piece cards as well that you're talking about seeing the leaderboard. And that was one of the first things that came to my mind, is you're going to see some pricks and you're going to be like, who the hell is that guy? With 3 cards you've never seen in your life before, all on 80 and above and on level 19 that they paid £4 for,
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of cards, a lot of players that have been absolutely not relevant in Sorare, and they're going to very quickly become relevant. If they are consistent scorers from, like you say, Ecuador or certain teams from obscure places. If they're beating your Celtic cards, you're gonna be forced to go and pick some of them up.
Yeah, big time. And yeah, even like Ecuador, I remember like Harry's picked up a few wonder kids from there as well. That the teams that we have licensed do have talent coming through them. And Jack's asking if you can use one common in 220. The answer is no. You need to go full limited now, 220 limited. And rare, you can still use the limited keeper, thankfully. And the unique still has the bonus in the super rare all-star division. People will be glad to hear if they are in that position, like I was. So yeah, there were some changes that we noticed that didn't really change, or things that did change for the common one, I suppose. But yeah, that's definitely the first one for me. I think like I'm kind of across 2 regions, but I've got the champion element as well as like contender, and I think all these regions are going to be very different. I don't know if I want to say difficulties, but very different experiences of the game in terms of who you're against and how deep the talent pool is. Never mind the leaderboard, and then what kind of stuff you win. Because challengers, like we touched on Brazil there briefly, but it's Brazil and MLS, and then it's like a couple of European leagues in terms of EU and non-EU. It's not actually that much in that little middle band. And obviously Champion's just champion. It's top 5. So all 3 of these leagues are completely different. I'm not too about it, but experiences are, experiences.
Yeah, it's three very different games, essentially, isn't it? It's like you say, you covered all of it there. The players you're using, the people, the Sorare managers that you're going to actually be up against. It's it's very going to be very, very different. And again, I feel quite comfortable just focusing on one, especially as a relatively new Sorare manager. Maybe I will branch out in the future. But again, if you're if you're not on a huge budget and stuff like that, if you can, and Sorare was like this before, but if you can become an expert, not even an expert, if you can become very knowledgeable in one region, and you can put as much time as you can into that one region, you should hopefully see the benefits from that. So I don't want to spend 33% of my time on champion, 33% of my time on contender, and et cetera, et cetera. I'd rather put 100% into one and try and do very well in there. And again, maybe in the future, if I do have more time and I don't have a 1-year-old, when he's a bit older, then maybe I can start spending a bit more time doing research and stuff. But for me, I feel comfortable in contender. I think there's enough variety in there for me to really enjoy this game.
Yeah, big time. And I say, hopefully it probably will become the region where we know that's where the best players are, because it's the hardest to win, So it's where you get your stripes, it's where you get your street creds as contenders, But yeah, I've just seen the time we've kind of been going for as well, Mark. Sorry to keep you for so long. Is there anything else you want to kind of go over while we're on tonight?
No, I think think we've hit most things there. Like I said, we didn't have much of a plan here, but I knew it would just kind of flow fairly naturally. So yeah, no, I'm just again even more excited now to get started, and just to thank you for your content as well over the last couple of months. It's been very, very helpful to someone who, I mean, I've been on the platform since around the World Cup time, but I've only really started to take it more seriously, I'd say, the last 5 or 6 months, and more so, 5 or 6 weeks, I would say. So, the
Yeah.
content's been very helpful. So appreciate it. So thank you for that.
No, but my absolute pleasure, man. Thanks very much for for liking it, and the kind words. It means a lot, and like you say, the last 4 or 5 weeks you've been extra busy, but I'd say that's the sort of time we've been talking over as well, and it's always good. That's what the content's all about. When you were mentioning why you're recording as well, like you're doing this stuff anyway, and football's all about people. It's all about everything that goes around it, mate. So thanks very much. It really does mean a lot. And to everyone that's tuned into the stream tonight, live or after we've been live, fist bump to you as well, especially if you've got all the way to the end. Absolute hero. But yeah, thanks to you all. I'll be back live tomorrow, will you believe it, for the deadline show. And yeah, like and subscribe, share, retweet, and all that good stuff. Sorare Contender, link is in the description down below. And yeah, catch you on the next one. We'll still be here, Mark. 2 seconds.